CEO who never smiled for 20 years discovered the life-changing secret in his secretary's song. James Parker had built his empire in the heart of San Francisco, a glimmering tech tower filled with glass and steel. For 20 long years every smile had flickered out, suffocated by the relentless pursuit of success. He buried himself in spreadsheets and endless projections, reveling in profits while missing precious moments with his daughter, Emily. The countless birthdays, school plays, and late-night conversations were all ghosts, remnants of a life he'd chosen to neglect. As the world outside bustled with hope and laughter, James sat inside, a solitary fortress wrapped in ambition. Yet, in the sterile silence of his office, one melody broke the monotony. Sarah, his lively secretary, hummed a tune that danced around the starkness. Each note seemed to breathe warmth into the lifeless walls, jolting James from the depths of his work. It was a simple song about resilience and family, a stark contrast to the charts and graphs he fixated on daily. Hearing the lyrics, he felt a tightness in his chest. For the first time in years, the weight of loneliness pressed into him, revealing cracks in his otherwise impenetrable facade. Just as he was grappling with this unexpected vulnerability, a cloud of pressure descended. His company's funding round was on the brink of collapse. The murmurs of layoffs crept through the organization, threatening the livelihoods of those who had dedicated their lives to the company. His heart raced. Failing meant losing everything he'd worked for, yet in the back of his mind, whispered worries dug deeper. What would success mean if it cost him the love of his daughter? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As he pushed the thought of Emily to the side, he caught Sarah humming again. The melody flowed through the air, a gentle reminder of everything he had left behind. He realized that his relationships were crumbling exactly like his company's stability. This was no longer just a job. These were livelihoods intertwined with his own sense of worth. The laughter of his daughter echoed in his mind, reminding him of the love that he had taken for granted for far too long. Suddenly, he sprang to life. James reached out, not just to the community devastated by flooding outside, but to Emily. They shared music, laughter, and moments that made life vibrant. Yet, as glimmers of hope emerged, uncertainty loomed. Would he be able to transform before it was too late? Just when he began to feel the warmth of revival, the crisis loomed large. Was he strong enough to brave the storm? Or would corporate chaos consume him whole? With the stakes rising and the melody of hope playing in the background, James understood that he'd have to confront the true meaning of success. Would he reclaim his family and navigate the treacherous waters of the tech industry? The challenge ahead was steep, and the answer felt out of reach. But as the final notes of Sarah's song faded, he sensed something deeper rising within, a determination to reconnect with his heart. James took a deep breath, letting the melody linger in the corners of his mind. He was standing at a crossroads, and the time for decisions was fast approaching. More than ever, he felt the need to reach out not only to Emily but to his entire team. They had invested their energy, their hopes, into the company. Could he really let them down? With newfound resolve, he picked up his phone and dialed Emily. The line rang. His pulse quickened as he imagined her voice, bright and full of life. Would she even pick up? After all, how many times had he failed to show up in her life? "Hey, Dad." Her cheerful tone washed over him like a warm wave, sliding away some of the tense weight pressing on his shoulders. "Hey, Pumpkin. I was just thinking about you." His voice wavered slightly, the sincerity catching even him off guard. "Really? It's been a while since I heard that," she replied, a hint of laughter in her voice. He could almost picture her rolling her eyes, playful yet forgiving. She always had a way of making the distance between them feel small. "I know. I wanted to see if you'd like to hang out later," James stammered, his nerves tussling with excitement. "Maybe grab dinner?" A prolonged pause echoed through the line, casting shadows of doubt in his heart. "Sure, Dad. I'd love to," she finally answered, brightness radiating even through the phone. It felt like light breaking through clouds. As they made plans, James's spirits began to lift. His heart fluttered with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. In that brief conversation, he tasted the sweetness of connection, a yearning he had nearly forgotten later. As the sun dipped beneath the skyline, he stood in front of his office window, overlooking the city, a canvas of lights and life below him. This city may have pulsed with ambition, but it was the people, Emily, his team, that mattered. He had to figure out a way to balance this difficult corporate landscape without losing himself in the process. On his desk lay papers detailing potential layoffs. Each document felt like a dead weight dragging him down. How to deliver such news? What if he could leverage the struggles of their company to forge an even stronger bond among the employees, fueling innovation and teamwork in the face of adversity? In that moment, the melody of Sarah's song began to intertwine with his thoughts again, sparking a plan. He imagined it, a big meeting where he could gather everyone. No scripted CEO speech, just an honest discussion about the challenges ahead. He could involve his employees in a brainstorming session, fostering a sense of community. But doubts began to creep back in. Was he capable of being vulnerable with them? What if they saw weakness? Closing his eyes, he took a breath, recalling his daughter's laughter. Life wasn't about avoiding failure. It was about the courage to face it together. The next day, he called for an all-hands meeting. The conference room buzzed with murmurs as his team filed in, uncertainty etched on their faces. James could feel the tension, thick enough to cut with a knife. Would they understand his vision? As he stood before them, an unexpected calm washed over him. "I know times are tough," he started, the resonance of his voice rising with conviction. "But we have a resilient team. Together we can adapt, innovate, and keep moving forward." He spoke from his heart, deciding to lay everything bare, including their recent struggles. He could see eyes widening in surprise, then firming with determination. There were nods and murmurs of agreement, and somewhere deep in the room, he sensed a spark igniting. But just as hope began to swell within him, a question arose from the crowd, one that rattled him. "But what does this mean for our jobs?" The world around him shifted. He had wanted to inspire, but now it felt as if the ground beneath him was crumbling. Would he have the courage to face the truth? As uncertainty filled the air, James stood firm. He now realized he was not just fighting for his company, but for the people who made it a home. All he could do was embrace the moment, hoping they could join him on this rocky path ahead. The real question remained: would they find strength in each other, or be overwhelmed by fear? James felt the weight of every pair of eyes in the room fixate on him, a sense of expectancy mixed with fear. The question hung in the air, a cloud of uncertainty swirling around them. What did this mean for their jobs? He could see the worry etched on their faces, and it struck him hard. I know this news isn't easy," he began, his voice wavering slightly, "but I want to be honest with you." He swallowed hard, trying to dispel the lump in his throat. "We're at a crossroads, and it will take all of us to navigate through this storm." He was hit with a wave of vulnerability as he continued. "This isn't just about numbers. It's about people, each one of you. You all matter to me, and I refuse to see anyone as a mere statistic." A murmur rippled through the crowd. For a moment James feared he had stretched too far. Then he caught a glimpse of Sarah at the back, her expression encouraging. That little flash of hope urged him on. What if we don't just endure these challenges, but turn them into opportunities? He pressed, a spark igniting within him. What if we come together, share ideas, get creative? I want to encourage input from all of you. Every voice matters. More murmurs this time, whispers of intrigue flickering across the room. Could this really be a chance? But then Andrew, one of his more outspoken team members, spoke up. "That sounds great, James, but how do we know this isn't just fluff? We need real strategies. There are families depending on us." James felt the weight of those words. The gravitas of responsibility was a familiar companion, clawing at his insides. "You're right, Andrew. Real strategies matter." A silence cloaked the room, punctuated only by the sound of his heart drumming against his chest. "I don't have a perfect plan, but I promise to involve all of you every step of the way. We can create solutions together." With that, emotion swirled, fear mingling with the budding hope. It was no longer just about him, and that realization felt freeing. As the meeting drew to a close, a sense of community blossomed, tiny, yet powerful. Employees engaged in conversations about forming task forces, brainstorming sessions, and group discussions. Laughter erupted here and there, and he watched as hesitation slowly melted away. Their strength renewed him. He picked up his phone to text Emily, sharing both his struggles and the flicker of hope in the air. Just finished the meeting. They're talking and laughing. I think they might believe we can come through this. His fingers hovered over the screen, adding together. He hit send and felt a sense of relief. But then a shadow flickered across his desk. Sarah was at his door. Her eyes were shining, a mix of excitement and concern. James, can I talk to you about the song I wrote? You mentioned it felt real. Feeling buoyed by the shift in energy around him, he nodded, inviting her in. Of course, I'd love to hear it. As she approached, he noticed the passion dancing in her eyes. I think it can help everyone see their light ahead. We just have to believe in it. He felt the walls of doubt begin to crack with every word she spoke. But a new worry curled at the edges of his mind. What kind of role could a song play in such tumultuous times? As she began to share her vision, he could sense something stirring deep inside. But the lingering question remained, could they really harness the power of a song to inspire transformation within their team? With every note she hummed, hope filled the room, small but tangible. The answer felt close, yet tantalizingly out of reach. Would they discover a way to turn everything around, fueled by the rhythm of their shared dreams? James leaned forward, captivated by Sarah's words. Each one wrapped around him like a warm blanket, pulling him into her vision. Imagine, she said, her voice steadying, if we performed my song at the company retreat. It would be more than just a performance. It could be a rallying point, a way to connect everyone back to what really matters. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and James found himself leaning into it. What do you see the song doing? He asked, curiosity lacing his voice. It's about vulnerability, she said, her eyes alight. It's about finding strength in our struggles together. When you see people being real, sharing their fears and hopes, that's when you build trust. That's how we can weave back our team camaraderie. He watched as she spoke, her hands dancing in the air, painting the picture she saw. He had always underestimated her ability to inspire. But how do we get everyone involved? Not just to listen but to participate. He pressed, wanting more from her enthusiasm, eager to turn that flicker of hope into flaming passion. What if we formed a choir? She suggested, a grin forming. A chance for everyone to sing together. It doesn't matter if they can hold a note. It's about the act of coming together. James's heart raced. Could something so simple really reignite their spirits? I think that's brilliant, he exclaimed, excitement bubbling within him. But what if they resist? Some might not want to put themselves out there, especially with everything at stake. That's the challenge, she said, tapping her chin thoughtfully. We have to create a safe space. A space where it's okay to be vulnerable. I'll arrange a few practice sessions outside of work hours. Maybe everyone could bring a friend or family member, so they have that support. It could be their choice, he murmured, the idea taking root. The thought of employees connecting personally felt transformative. They could sing together, share laughter, and perhaps intentionally forge new connections. It was an unorthodox approach, but this was a time for brave ideas. James could see it now. Colleagues, friends, families all gathered, engaged in laughter and music. Life pulsing through the office, filling their once quiet atmosphere with hope. Let us set a date right now, he said impulsively, already envisioning the empty halls filled with sounds of encouragement and connection. Sarah's confident nod reassured him. She was right. This could work. As they dove deeper into planning, a sense of renewed energy flowed between them, and he felt the shadows of doubt lifting. But just then Andrew appeared, leaning against the doorframe with his arms crossed. What's this about a choir? He asked, his brow arched. James looked at Sarah and his heart raced. Andrew was a force. He could either reinforce this idea or demolish it. We're thinking about creating a choir to bring the team together, James said carefully. Andrew remained silent for a moment, weighing implications. Look, I admire the vision, but it's a risky move, just like this whole initiative. A lot of people are counting on us to bring back the stability, not to play games. James felt a shift in the air. The expectation was building, tension thickening the silence. But it's also about connection, Andrew, he finally said, trying to pierce through the skepticism. If we don't connect, how can we even hope to recover? Andrew took a contemplative step forward, narrowing his eyes. And what if they fail? What if this turns into a disaster? James opened his mouth to respond, but another wave of uncertainty washed over him. What if Andrew was right? The last thing they needed was more failure. Sarah interjected, that's why we start small. We build trust first. A hushed silence filled the space, everyone contemplating the weight of her words. Hope and doubt battled within him, and the stakes felt higher than ever. Could this really be the way forward? The thought hung in the air like a challenge. James needed to decide whether to plunge forward or retreat. The music in his mind was growing louder, yet fear echoed just as strongly. In this moment he stood at the brink of something bigger than a song. What would he choose? Would he take a risk on a chance that could unite them, or would he play it safe and risk losing everything? The choice was his, and all eyes were on him. In the throbbing silence, a thought pierced through. Sometimes transformation lies in the bravest of risks. Could this be their turning point? James felt the weight of everyone's gaze, the tension wrapping around him like a thick fog. It was as if time slowed down, moments stretching far longer than they should. The air crackled with an unspoken urgency, and he could see Sarah's hopeful eyes searching for an answer in his. Andrew stood there, skeptical and firm, a silent statue of doubt. Taking a deep breath, James stood tall. I can't promise it'll all be smooth sailing, he finally said, but I believe in this. We owe it to ourselves to try. Andrew's expression shifted slightly. He was still skeptical but showing signs of thawing. Then I'll back you up, he relented, arms slowly uncrossing. But if you're going to do this, commit fully. No half measures. The relief that washed over James was palpable. With Andrew on board, the dream felt a little more tangible. He turned towards Sarah, who was practically glowing with excitement. They began brainstorming, practical steps mingling with vibrant ideas, each suggestion leading them to that envisioned choir. Days turned into weeks as they organized practice sessions. The air was filled with the kind of nervous energy that ignites just before a storm. William from accounting, notorious for his reticence, surprised everyone by showing up, singing in a shaky falsetto. Lucy from HR, usually composed, cracked jokes between songs, her laughter infectious and freeing. Strangers became friends in moments of shared laughter over missed notes and awkward rhythms. What began as hesitant murmurs of uncertainty transformed into harmonious connections that filled the room with warmth. James felt something shifting inside him too. Each session he found solace in the shared voices. The notes floated above his worries, lifting the burdens he had carried for so long. The music wasn't just a choir. It was a healing balm. One evening as they wrapped up practice, Sarah turned to him, her voice full of sincerity. I knew this could work, but I didn't realize just how much it could change us. Thank you for believing in this. Her gratitude made something swell in his chest. It was a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. Suddenly everything felt lighter. But a few voices floated up to him from the corner of the room. Their laughter gelled with uncertainty. What if it doesn't come together? What if we bomb at the retreat? They murmured. The doubts he thought were fading crept back in. A knot tightened in his stomach. Maybe I should have played it safer, he muttered under his breath, but Sarah caught it. James, remember, we're doing this together. It's not about the performance, it's about the journey, she reminded him, her faith strengthening his resolve. The weeks flew by, and as the date of the retreat approached, a sense of urgency simmered beneath the surface. James noticed more hushed conversations, amplified whispers of fear and worry. With each passing day, the echoes of self-doubt grew louder. Could he rally everyone in time? Was there a chance that Andrew might be right after all? Then came the evening before the retreat, an intimate last practice meant to smooth down the edges. Yet it felt heavy with anticipation. The room was quieter than before, everyone stealing looks back and forth, the uncertainty palpable. James noticed the spark that had ignited all those weeks ago beginning to dim. Could he really lead them to something extraordinary? That night, as he lay in bed, restlessness churned within him. The stakes felt impossibly high, a melody tethered to their futures entwined with a sense of hope. Tomorrow could either lift them to new heights or leave them shattered on the floor. His heart raced as he grappled with one converging thought. What if this was their moment to either harness their collective power or succumb to their fears? He needed to rally their spirits or risk losing everything they had built. The weight of choices loomed heavy, bringing forth a truth he couldn't ignore. It was now or never. Would he find the words to bring them together? Or would they crumble under pressure? Only time would tell. Could he rise to the occasion? James woke up early, the morning sun slicing through the blinds and casting stripes of light across the room. He felt exhausted, but he knew he needed to push through. Today was the day the retreat was finally here. It felt like a final exam, and he was the one expected to produce the answers, armed only with hope and determination. As he drove to the retreat center, anxiety gripped him tighter than ever. The familiar bend in the road felt surreal. Every turn seemed to mock his uncertainty. Would his team shine today? Or would they falter? He thought of all the practices, the laughter, the moments of real connection. But would it matter in the end? The retreat center was a picturesque place, surrounded by tall trees and fluttering butterflies. Yet, instead of feeling invigorated by the beauty, he felt a sense of foreboding. Each member of the choir was counting on him, but doubts surged beneath the surface, whispering dark thoughts that he fought to silence. Walking into the main hall, he was met with a flurry of excited chatter. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation, but James could sense an undercurrent of tension. He spotted Sarah seated in a corner, her fingers nervously dancing on the table. She caught his eye and smiled, but it was tinged with uncertainty. "Are you okay?" she asked softly as he approached. "I'm trying to be," he admitted, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Remember what I said?" she reminded him, her eyes sparkling with reassurance. "We've come too far to turn back now." Nodding, James took a deep breath, channeling his energy into enthusiasm. "Let's run through the plan one more time before we head on stage," he suggested, gathering the group around him. They listened intently, their faces a mix of excitement and anxiety. But as he spoke, he noticed Andrew lingering at the back, arms crossed once again, skepticism written all over his face. Pang of pressure hit him. Was Andrew still skeptical despite their progress? Just then Lucy raised her hand. "James, what if we mess up? What if we forget the lyrics? Or what if I sing flat?" The room filled with murmurs of agreement. James felt his heart sink. He realized that Sarah was right. They needed to close the rift that had begun to form. "Look," he began, his voice steady but with a hint of urgency, "we may stumble, we may miss a note, but we're not here to score points. We're here to share something. This journey, it's about more than just us. It's about lifting each other up." As the words left his lips, a flicker of understanding lit up some of their faces. "Remember the first time we sang that one song together?" he continued, eyes lighting up. "It was clumsy, sure, but it was also so full of heart. If we can harness that, we'll be just fine." The room felt a little lighter. James noticed Sarah leaning forward, her eyes glimmering with belief. "Let us make a promise then," Andrew finally said, his voice breaking the lingering tension. "No matter what happens, we trust each other. Can we do that?" Nods and murmurs of agreement flowed through the group, their hearts uniting in that moment. "Okay," James said, grinning. "Let us go show them what we can do." As they headed toward the stage, James felt a renewed sense of purpose. The tightness in his chest loosened, and with each step, he felt the collective strength of the group behind him. But just before they reached the stage, a wild thought crossed his mind. What if something unexpected happened out there? Something that not only tested their unity but their faith in themselves? The thought sent a shiver down his spine. The crowd was waiting. Would they rise to the occasion, or would the weight of doubt pull them apart? Only moments away from their moment in the spotlight, James could feel the stakes were higher than ever. As they stepped onto the stage, a wave of sound bloomed from the crowd. A mixture of rustling programs, whispered hopes, and the soft hum of anticipation. James felt the heat from the lights above, bathing him in warmth but igniting more nerves in his belly. He glanced at the other choir members, Sarah, Andrew, Lucy, all lined up and ready, but there was something raw in the air. Every heart was beating in sync, yet that pulse was underlined by an unarticulated fear. James couldn't remember the last time he stood in front of an audience with such apprehension. Every moment felt amplified. He cleared his throat, feeling the microphone's cold metal against his fingertips as he stepped forward to address the audience. "Thank you for being here with us today." The words slipped out, genuine but quaking with the weight of what lay ahead. The audience clapped, an inviting sound that filled the space. Encouraged, he glanced back at his team. They were ready. He could see it in their eyes, their collective belief igniting together. "Today we want to share something special with you," he said, summoning a smile that felt real this time. "This is more than just a performance. It's about connection, trust, and finding our voices amidst doubt." The murmurs in the audience quieted as they leaned in. Curiosity piqued. James didn't breathe again until Lucy stepped forward, her nerves coursing through her, yet infused with determination. She opened her mouth to sing, and an unanticipated magic swept through the room. The first note soared, hang in the air, wrapping everyone in a melodic embrace. James joined in, his voice rising alongside hers, and as the harmony filled the hall, he felt his anxieties melt away. The rest of the choir followed suit, their voices blending into a beautiful tapestry of sound. For the first time he felt free. No longer was he just a conductor. He was part of something bigger, a symphony of vulnerability and strength. But just as the song reached an emotional crescendo, disaster struck. Andrew, his face pale, faltered, forgetting his part. The music staggered for a split second like a hiccup. James's heart raced. Would this be the collapse? In that moment of panic, he locked eyes with Andrew. Instead of allowing the fear to seep in, he gestured wildly, connecting them. "Together. We've got this," he shouted, and unexpectedly, Andrew responded, launching back into the song, his voice melding with James and Lucy. It was messy, but it was real. The moment lifted, and James could see the audience leaning in, caught up in the authenticity of the journey they were sharing. They exchanged smiles. The trust they'd promised earlier was manifesting before their very eyes. When the final note echoed through the hall, the audience erupted into applause, a roaring wave that washed over them. Tears of joy glistened in Lucy's eyes, while Sarah gave Andrew a proud nod. James felt a warmth radiate from his chest that he'd forgotten existed. They had done it together, rising above doubt and insecurity. But then, just as the applause began to fade, a voice from the back of the audience pierced through, ringing out with an unexpected question. "What if that wasn't your best song?" The air thickened around them, and uncertainty loomed again. James turned to see who had spoken, heart racing anew. What lay ahead for them now? Facing the unknown in their moment of triumph. There was more to this journey than he had prepared for. How would they respond when doubt loomed again, even after a victory? James stood frozen for a moment, the applause fading into a daunting silence that stretched out in front of him. The words hung heavy in the air, a challenge laced with disappointment. He scanned the audience, his heart pounding, searching for the source of that voice. A man sat at the back, arms crossed, an expression of skepticism etched on his face. The spotlight seemed to dim around him, amplifying the shadows of uncertainty that crept into James's mind. What if this was the moment everything unraveled? We appreciate the feedback. Sarah finally stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tension. But we poured our hearts into that performance. The man shrugged, his gaze piercing. Poured your hearts, sure. But this choir could do more. Don't settle. James felt heat rising in his cheeks. Settle? They had just conquered a fear that threatened to strangle them on stage. Yet something inside him stirred. Was there truth to what the man said? Was their last song just a taste of their potential? He gently pulled Sarah back, gesturing for the choir to step back as a collective. The room buzzed with murmurs from the audience, a mix of confusion and curiosity. "Let us show them what we're made of," James declared, his voice now firm, carrying the weight of resolve. But Lucy started, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Just trust me. Let us take it to another level." He turned to his team, searching their faces for agreement. They were tired but resilient. He could see the flicker of determination in their eyes, and soon they were nodding determined. He lifted his chin. "All right, choir. We'll do it one more time. And this time we'll give them everything." With a wave of his hand, they shuffled back into position, all while James's heart raced. The music began to swell again, a deep rhythmic pulse that filled the room. As they opened their mouths, the first note hit with more fire, more passion. He felt the surge of adrenaline course through him, empowering and freeing at the same time. James locked eyes with Andrew this time, and the bond they had just formed during their tightrope act of recovery was stronger than ever. He guided them through the piece with fervor. Each note built upon the last, a tapestry of sound rising to heights they hadn't yet touched. The audience, still buzzing with confusion, melted into the melody. He could see the surprise changing their expressions. Moments were unfolding, people swaying, clapping along, smiling wide. Then suddenly, amidst the triumphant swell, came a moment of silence. The music dropped, a breath held among the choir and the spectators alike, hearts racing in unison. James seized it. He stepped forward, letting the silence linger just a moment longer before he let his voice dive back into the mix one final time. And everyone followed. The crescendo shattered the stillness, a wave crashing over them, filled with hope, dreams and perseverance, their best song flooding the hall. When they reached the final note, the applause erupted like fireworks, electric and bright. This time it felt different. It felt like a promise. James looked over to the man at the back, who now wore a surprised grin. The challenge had lit a fire, and maybe that was what they needed all along. But even as victory coursed through the room, a voice echoed in James's mind. What if they could do even more? As the audience continued to clap, he felt uncertainty creeping back in. But this time, there was a tingle of excitement in it too. What if they weren't at the peak? What new heights awaited them just beyond the horizon? Outside the curtains, he saw their choir director approaching. An expression of curiosity blended with interest. "What's next for you guys? Because the journey has only just begun," she declared. And in that moment, James knew the real challenge was still ahead. How far could they go if they kept pushing boundaries? James watched as the choir director approached, her enthusiasm palpable. "The real challenge is just beginning," she had said, igniting a spark in him. What was next? The thought consumed him, spinning in his mind like a whirlpool. As applause faded into the background, and the audience's excitement transformed into a low murmur, he pulled Sarah aside. "We can't stop here," he said, urgency surging through his words. "I want us to think bigger, to reach deeper." Sarah nodded, her brow furrowed with contemplation. "But how? We just gave it our all. Isn't that enough? Not if we truly want to feel what we're capable of. Not if we're never going to settle," James replied, determined. The flicker in her eyes shifted to something brighter. He could see she was beginning to catch the vision he was painting. "But what does that look like? What if we can't deliver?" Lucy piped in again, quieter this time, a hint of worry lacing her tone. James exhaled softly, feeling the weight of their doubts. "It starts with belief. In ourselves and each other. There's a whole world out there waiting to hear us. What if we take on a new challenge, something completely different? Something that pushes us past our comfort zone?" A ripple of uncertainty went through the crowd, but his heart raced with excitement. Ideas spun in his mind, collaborations with local artists, sharing their songs with the community, even a full-blown concert. Each thought was more exhilarating than the last, fanning the flames of his imagination. Andrew stepped forward, emboldened by James's energy. "What if we do a fusion of different styles? We could mix genres, combine our voices in ways people have never heard before." The group's murmurs shifted from doubt to eagerness. They began tossing around thoughts like confetti. They could reach out to a nearby orchestral group. They could collaborate with a local hip-hop artist. The possibilities felt boundless, and each suggestion brought them closer together as James witnessed the choir's transformation from hesitant singers into a group of roaring lions. He couldn't help but smile. Laughter bubbled up along with the ideas. But amidst the joy, the question lingered. Could they really take on something this ambitious? Or would it expose them to their deepest flaws? Just then the man from the back approached. His skepticism was replaced with admiration. "I've seen many groups come and go, but something tells me you're different. You're hungry for growth." His voice resonated with authenticity. "Stay that way. Challenge yourselves and you'll find your voice becomes unstoppable." James felt the weight of this endorsement. The man had seen their potential, and it fueled his conviction. "We'll make sure to live up to that challenge," he said, gratitude evident in his tone. But even as the fire sparked in his belly, the shadows of self-doubt flickered just behind it. What if their bravado wouldn't stand against reality? Could they deliver a performance worthy of their dreams? The choir buzzed with excitement, planning their next steps under the golden lights of the auditorium. James felt exhilarated but apprehensive. They stood on the precipice of something significant, the unknown looming just ahead as his gaze drifted towards the backstage door. An idea dawned on him, sending a thrill up his spine. What if they recorded their next performance live? What if they shared their journey with the world, all the challenges, the joy, the growth? All right, everyone, James clapped his hands, gathering attention. Who's ready to take on the challenge of a lifetime? Cheers erupted around him, voices lifted high with enthusiasm. They were ready to leap, ready to face whatever awaited them ahead. But in the depths of his mind, questions simmered. Would this decision bind them closer than ever? Or would it break them apart in unforeseen ways? James inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of the moment. They were on the brink, and the next step would define them. What awaited them in the abyss of that uncertainty? The night of the performance had finally arrived, and the air was electric with anticipation. The venue was packed, each seat filled with eager faces, all awaiting the transformation James and his choir had promised. They were up against the world, but this time it felt different. This time they were fueled by unwavering resolve and a bond that would carry them through whatever came next. As they gathered backstage, whispers of excitement danced around them. James looked into their faces: Sarah, Andrew, Lucy, and the rest of the choir. Each one of them had grown so much, and he could see it in their eyes. There was trust there, a beautiful tapestry woven from their shared hopes and vulnerable moments. They were not just singing a song. They were telling a story, their story. Let us remember why we're doing this, James said, his voice steady yet full of emotion. This isn't about perfection. It's about connection. It's about showing the world we are more than just employees, we are a family. And families rise together. With that, the crowd's murmurs faded as they stepped out into the spotlight. The stage lights enveloped them, illuminating their determined faces. Anxiety was still hovering, but it mixed with an exhilarating sense of freedom. This was their moment to shine, a moment they had fought for. As the music began, James felt the rhythm take hold. Each note flowed through him, dispersing fears like dust in sunlight. He remembered the doubts that once clouded his mind, the fear of failure, the fear of being vulnerable. But here on this stage, those fears dimmed in the face of love and camaraderie. Their voices blended, rising and falling like waves in the ocean, filling the room with something palpable, something alive. As they moved into the heart of their performance, he could see faces in the audience captivated. He spotted Emily, her eyes wide with pride, and felt a rush of warmth. The laughter they had shared, the dreams they had poured out to each other, all echoed in this space. This was real. They were doing it. With each chorus, they weaved a narrative of resilience. They shared their fears, their triumphs, and their love through music. They reached not just for notes but for hearts. Bonded by the struggles, they rose together. Every hesitant step turned into a strong stride. And then came the moment of magic, a fusion that surprised even them. They transitioned into a medley of styles, blending genres seamlessly, showcasing the unique voices each member brought. The energy shifted in the room, laughter bubbled up, and the crowd began to sway. It was a moment of pure joy, owning their identity and celebrating their journey. When they finished, the silence that followed felt sacred, as if the air itself was holding its breath. And before James could even process what had happened, thunderous applause erupted, filling every corner of the auditorium. Tears streamed down Lucy's cheeks, her joy contagious, and even Andrew wore a proud smile. But this wasn't just about applause. It was about real connections forged through vulnerability and courage. As the crowd cheered, James spotted the man from earlier, a line of admiration softening his previously skeptical eyes. In that moment, he knew they had done something profound, not just for themselves, but for everyone who had ever doubted their potential. Later, as they reveled in the afterglow of their performance, the reality of what they had achieved began to sink in. Sarah turned to him, her voice brimming with warmth. James, we did it together. I always knew we could. The pride in her voice echoed in every fiber of his being. He felt something shift within him, a sense of belonging, of purpose. James stepped back to survey his choir, his friends, his family. This is just the beginning, he proclaimed. Let us take this momentum and continue weaving our stories together, reaching out and stretching our voices beyond what we thought possible. Cheers erupted again. But this time it was layered with a deep understanding of the journey they would embark upon. They were no longer just a tech company seeking to survive. They were a community, ready to empower each other and those around them as they wrapped up that night. A familiar song floated through his mind, Sarah's melody, the one that had pulled him from the brink of despair, the one that had opened his heart to love and connection. He closed his eyes, letting the notes swirl through him, and just like that, a new chapter dawned. They were moving forward together, hand in hand, ready to face anything that came their way. James had learned the true meaning of success: to lift others while finding his own voice. The world lay before them, rich with possibility, and their song had just begun. Now it's time for you to be part of this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support the content you love. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this Ending Your Voice Matters. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share and show your support. Only true fans understand the importance of standing together in this journey.